Okay, this video should be a review of right triangle trigonometry. And what I thought I would do is kind of break right triangle trigonometry down to 3 videos. All right, on the first one, what we're going to focus on is how do you find a missing side? And hopefully you guys remember this. Like I said, this should be a review. But how do you find a missing side using SOHCAHTOA? Let's review what SOHCAHTOA means first of all. In a right triangle, you're going to have an angle. That angle is going to be also called your reference angle. There's our reference angle. From that angle, we can describe the relationship of the sides in the right triangle to the reference angle. We have the side opposite, we have the side adjacent, which is next to it, and always across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. There are 3 general trigonometric functions. The 3 general trigonometric functions are sine, cosine, and tangent. And each one of them can be represented by a trigonometric ratio. All right? And the ratios are sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. What we came up with in the past is a quick way to remember these ratios. All right, we have SOH, CAH, known as SOHCAHTOA. And if you recognize what happens, it says the sine function is opposite over hypotenuse, the cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and the tangent is opposite over adjacent. Now, what we're going to focus on here is how do I use these trigonometric ratios to find a missing side. All right, and here are the steps that I always like to follow. The first thing I want to do is figure out who's where. Who's the reference angle? What are the pieces of the puzzle that I know? Then I'm going to determine the trig. Is it SO, CA, or TOA? Sine, cosine, or tangent. I then write the trig, and then I solve the trig. And there's two different ways to solve the trigonometric equation. All right? You're either going to multiply by trig or you're going to divide by trig. And essentially what this multiply by trig and divide by trig is it's a quick way to solve the proportion that we're creating through that. So, first thing, before we get started, go to your graphing calculator, hit the mode button on your graphing calculator, and the third one down. If you have radian highlighted, bad. We're talking about angle measurements in degrees. So make sure that you change that over to degrees by hitting enter, all right? And then you can go second mode or quit out of that, all right? All right, so our first scenario here, here's our reference angle, 35 degrees. I know that in relation to 35 degrees, 11 is across from it, so we're going to call that opposite. And I know across from the right angle, this side is the hypotenuse. We don't know anything about that side. We don't need anything about that side for this particular problem. Now, based on the O and the H, I go to my trig, SOHCAHTOA, okay? And let me just write it down so we've got a little reference here. SOHCAHTOA. And based on knowing O and H, that tells me that the sine function is the one that we're going to use. We write the trig. The sine of 35 degrees is equal to the side opposite divided by the hypotenuse. Okay? So if I cross multiply, remember this is over 1. So if I cross multiply and divide to solve, I'm going to be taking, to find x, I'm going to have 11 divided by the sine of 35. Okay? Let me write it out just so you can see all the arithmetic here. If I cross multiply, I have x times the sine of 35 is equal to 1 times 11, or 11. Now to solve for x, we would divide both sides by the sine of 35. So I get x is equal to 11 divided by the sine of 35. And once I get to this part, I'm ready to go to my calculator. Now I noticed in the directions it says round to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to grab my calculator, take 11 divided by sine 35. Always close it off if they open it up for you. And hit enter, and then round that to the nearest tenth and get 19.2. Okay, let's take a look at this next one here. For this next problem, all right, I'm thinking SOHCAHTOA. I see that I have a reference angle at 69. Now, from 69, let's see, the first thing that jumps out at me, I know that's hypotenuse. All right, from 69, where is x? Well, that's directly across from it, so that's O. Again, we're going to use the sine function. So the sine of 69 degrees is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Now, when I cross multiply to solve this, I'm going to have x is equal to 9 times the sine of 69 degrees. Okay? So this is the idea of multiply by trig. Okay? I'm going to round this to the nearest tenth. 9 times the sine of, what was it? 69 degrees. It's in degree mode, we're good. 8.4. All right, so how about this next one? Let's see. Again, I'm thinking SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. I have my reference angle of 41. From 41, I know 8 is opposite. I know x is hypotenuse. There's not hypotenuse. What the heck am I thinking? It's adjacent. It's next to it, and it's next to it not being across from the right angle. There's the hypotenuse. Okay? So who's OA? That would be TOA, or the tangent function. So I'm going to say that the tangent of 41 degrees is equal to opposite over adjacent. And I know in this scenario, when I cross multiply and divide, I know x is going to be equal to 8 divided by the tangent of 41 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and type that in. 8 divided by the tangent of 41. Close that off. Equals 9.2. All right, let's try one more here. Again, I'm going to just write down the SOHCAHTOA. All right, I've got my reference angle here of 46.9 degrees. All right, I know right away x here is my hypotenuse because that's across from the right angle. But this 3.3 is adjacent. Opposite would be over here where AC is. That's not opposite then. Who is AH? That would be the caca, or the cosine. All right, so I'm going to write my trig out now. That says the cosine of 46.9 degrees is equal to adjacent 3.3 over hypotenuse x. Again, I've got a scenario where I'm going to have to divide by trig. So I have 3.3 divided by the cosine of 46.9 degrees. Let's see here, 3.3 divided by the cosine of 46.9. And it's in degree mode, equals 4.8, rounded to the nearest tenth. I hope this helps. Let me know if you guys have any questions.